Hello and welcome to episode 19 of Startup Success Students with your host, Rayyan Karim. Today, we've got an awesome guest. His name is Rachy Brown. He has this amazing company that is now looking for venture capital. It's a crypto organization that turns real world assets into NFTs, very popular. So we're going to talk to Rachy Brown. Rachy Brown's had a really amazing life. He grew up in a tent park in Florence and has now got his own crypto and NFT business, which I think you'll agree is quite a phenomenal journey. So we're going to learn all about Rachy's personal journey and how it intercedes with his business life and how his holistic life experience has allowed him to be in the position he is today of trying to find venture capital for his very impressive Omni DeFi business. So let's see how we turn real world assets into NFTs. Let's learn what it's like to grow up in a tent park in Florence and how that's opened his opportunities for the world. Of course, you can go on ryankarim.com/podcast and you can have a look at all of the other short clips we've got available, the most recent episodes that have gone live, and then a link where you can see all active 17 videos. Video number 18 is going out next Wednesday. This is video 19. Getting us nice and ahead of schedule. So our guest is going to be joining us today. I know he's eager for this session. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And we're going to get started. 3, 2, 1. We're in. All right. And we're joined by Rachy Brown, who I've just learned does not only have the Omni DeFi business, also has 6 other businesses. How are you doing today, Rachy?
Very good. Very good. Like I said earlier, I'm a little bit tired because I haven't slept much, but feeling good. Yeah,
that's it, mate. Running all those companies makes you a very busy man, no doubt. So what's been getting your attention lately? What's been keeping you up? What you've been busy doing?
Just recently, we're setting up a green energy car company, which is part of LeTac, which has created a green energy ammonia cracker engine. It can basically run anything, like it can run cars, trucks.
Wow.
Trains, ships, you name it. So it'll be like a real proper viable competitor to what's out there at the moment in terms of green energy vehicles. So I think it's kind of the future because ammonia is a lot easier to transport than say hydrogen and stuff. Okay. And also the ammonia cracker will only create as much hydrogen as the engine needs, so it's not explosive the same way. And you know, ammonia is the 6th most available chemical. So there's a lot of promise there. We had a NASA scientist to have a look at the prototype engine recently, just to verify that it's all, you know, above board and everything works. And we're talking to investors at the moment for a lot of money because there's some big projects potentially for that one. And then as a side project, because I really want to do the car thing, because that wasn't really the main focus. Main focus was like forklift trucks and shipping to start with, and then maybe trucks after that and all that kind of stuff. But the lead scientist, Ron, has managed to basically find a way to make the engine a bit smaller, which means we can fit it into cars basically. And so we got a really nice model, and we got a really nice name for it.
Sounds cool, man.
I won't say until we set up the company next week.
Yeah. In case someone nicks it just before we get there, right?
yeah. And then I mean, this is just kind of like most recently, and then we're setting up a gaming company. We just decided the name for that one yesterday as well, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of like we've already kind of started on the game, but it's NFT DeFi kind of game. So earn to learn, or learn to earn, and play to earn kind of thing.
Yeah.
An experimental kind of playground for just DeFi and trying out different ideas. And we already have some pretty original ideas that we're gonna test out. It's gonna be pretty fun.
Yeah, I want to get into all of that, mate. I want you to help us unpack a little bit around DeFi, help us unpack a little bit around NFT. For some people listening to this, it's just like buzzword bingo, right? They're like, well, what is this stuff? Yeah. So we will get into that. But mate, I'm fascinated, right? I saw in your profile that you were raised or you were born in a tent in Florence. And it's just like, how do you go from tent in Florence to multiple businesses that are extremely relevant for the time that we're in and they're seemingly solving some of these big problems that the world are facing, right? Especially with the green energy. I know there's a big story there, no doubt, but
first thing
how on earth did that journey happen?
First thing to do is to get past being born, right? And survive long enough.
First challenge.
But yeah, nice. It's I guess it's been quite a long journey, really, because I mean, my mother and my father were, I guess, hippies, traveling. So yeah, I was born in a park in Florence in a tent.
Wow.
And my parents at the time were selling moccasins and bracelets that they made themselves.
Yeah.
You know, while traveling, and obviously I don't remember much from there except that we did go back when I was about 3 or 4, I think. But then we went to southern Italy from there to a place called San Martino Valle di Caudina, and then I kind of grew up in a hippie commune in the mountains.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I guess, an organic farm, you know, although back in those days it was kind of organic. But yeah, so kind of lived that, I don't know, so until I was about 6 or so, I think. And that was under the protection of the Don, who basically, I guess, is like a count in that area. And so basically he'd get, I guess, foreigners, but a lot of those foreigners would be hippies. I was the only kid that literally no other kids until my younger sister was born on my birthday, actually, when I was 3. But yeah, so they kind of worked the farm and everything, but then they had to be protected by the Don because they were like mafia in the area. And then that got really bad because it was like this massive earthquake, probably by the time I was 3, I think. And there was like loads of donations were sent to the area, around 2 billion or something. Jeez. So what happened was there were these this mafia from the south. I know they're not called mafia, they got different names, but it was like mafia from Napoli coming up to San Martino, and then there was like, you know, mafia or gangs from the north coming down, and they literally had a war in that area. It's insane.
Wow.
So
then you got peace loving hippies in the middle of it all.
Yeah. Well, not that peace loving. I mean, these kind of like these are like different kinds of hippies. I mean, there was like a feminist camp where they were kind of like militant feminists.
Okay.
That my mother joined for a very short while, and they had guns and everything, and they're literally attack men. It's like, wow, it's pretty crazy. And so that kind of mafia war, there was like bullet holes everywhere. All the road signs had bullet holes because people would drive past and just kind of shoot at them.
Yeah.
And I saw people get shot. I saw
you got to think young age.
All of this is before I'm 8, right? So like,
wow, man, that's some heavy experience. There's got to be a lot of trauma as well that you've picked up along the way there.
I don't know if it's trauma, because I think like well, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I guess you kind of just adapt to whatever environment you grow up in, right? I mean, and yeah, that's what everybody does. And I think in some ways it's harder. I think it's harder to adapt to a difficult situation if you're a kid growing up, you know, in a safe environment, and then get introduced to it. But if your environment has always been chaotic, then that's just life, right? So it's kind of, that's just how you see it. Yeah, but it's a long story. I mean, all sorts of things happened, and then we went to Newcastle for a while because my dad's from Newcastle. And then there was a whole bunch of things happened there, which
that is a big change, right? Hippie commune type village with very militant feminists in Italy, all the way to Newcastle.
I do remember
everything, like, including the weather's different.
I think I was like around 6 or something. I do remember like bits and pieces from Newcastle. I remember kind of like joining kindergarten and stuff like that, but also like things got difficult between my father and my mother, and there was all sorts of issues there, and then eventually my mother took me and my sister in the middle of the night and kind of escaped, right? But you know, that was kind of like how she put it, and obviously my dad's got a completely different story, and I remember but and then we went back to Italy and nobody could find us, right? So my mother's Danish, and I hadn't really, I think maybe we went to Denmark then, to my grandmother's, and then we walked from Denmark all the way down to Italy.
Whoa!
So yeah. So we did the journey
or actually walking.
Yeah. So I think the journey down, I mean, I'd have to like ask my mother again, but I think the journey down we pretty much walked all the way through Germany and everything.
That is insane.
Yeah. So we had like this. I remember we had this. What do you call it? A baby's carriage thing.
Yeah.
We loaded everything on there. And,
like a buggy.
Yeah. I was pretty happy. I mean, that kind of like, I guess I like the adventure of it.
What an experience, man. Yeah, I'm going to say, walking all the way, I mean, that's a long journey, man. Even Forrest Gump would be proud of that, right?
Yeah, but we did it 3 times though, right? Because we went down. Oh, hang on, how did it work? Did we go up, down? I can't even remember. But I think the last time we kind of like, the last time we came up, we kind of like drove half the way because I'd ended up in a children's home. This is when I was about 8 or 9. So my youngest sister was born as well because she's 8 years younger than me. And my mother kind of disappeared now and then, and so and we were living in back in San Martino, and they were like we were living in these containers, like shipping containers because of all the so like people living in those, and we were living in those, and then my mother kind of disappeared for a couple of weeks, I believe, and then I think neighbors must have said that, and then we got put into this big. It's like a castle with nuns in it. So it's like a children's home, and me and my sisters got separated. I got put with a boy, she got put with the girls. Both my sisters were with the girls, and I don't know how long we were there, maybe a month or 2, and I was planning my escape. Yeah, because there's like they take us into town once a month to kind of get a haircut. So I was kind of like looking at all the routes, and I was kind of like planning my escape. And then pretty much a couple of days before the next time, and I'd planned it all in my head, and I think I was like 9 or something, and then I was like getting ready for that, right? It turned out that my sister, who's like 3 years younger than me, but she's also kind of smarter than me, she was doing the same. Like she was planning the same thing separately. So it's like it would have been a really bad thing though, because I don't know exactly what it was, but it was probably in Napoli. Naples, which is like you don't want to be a homeless kid there, right? There's like there's a lot of glue sniffing kind of kids that just living in cardboard boxes and God knows what. It's really bad. But of course, when you're a kid, you just kind of you just want to get away from the nuns, right? Really straight. And then my mum turned up with a friend and a car. And basically then was pretending to kind of like just visit, and then she got us in the back of the car really quickly, and we just zoomed out of that place.
Wow.
And then we zoomed for quite a while, probably got us to Germany or something, and then we walked for a bit, and then we got picked up by the police, and then the police drove us the rest of the way up to Denmark. And then we were in like God, I'm going on and on.
It's all good, mate. It's just fascinating to hear.
Yeah,
what an incredible life experience.
Denmark, and I kind of, we had to learn a new language, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we got taken away from my mother, all 3 of us, and we were put into a couple of children's homes, and so I guess I was around 10 or so at that point. And then, and then we went into foster care. Luckily, all 3 of us together. Well, there's 2 foster care families. The first one was very short, and then the second one was on a farm with a really lovely foster family. And luckily, all 3 of us were together.
Awesome.
So so kind of lived there for 5 years and had a little bit of normality for a while, which was kind of like novel. So normality, I guess, has always been like novel to me, which is probably why I think differently about everything.
You must think completely differently to everyone, man. Like just from the experiences you've seen at such a young age, you must think completely differently.
I've so much, man. It's so much. I mean, my life's been absolute chaos, right up until like, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 years, to be honest, which is pretty. yeah, I mean, it's just been madness. So it kind of like it puts you on a different trajectory, and you think different. So yeah, so by the time I was 15, then my mother got rights to have us back again. My two sisters went to live with my mother, and then I decided to go to boarding school. So I was at this boarding school for a year, and I got put up 2 classes because I did a test.
Jesus,
So
too smart for your own good, you see. All those early experiences made you a super genius.
But they did that. So they just did a test and said, okay, well, we'll put you up 2 classes. And
Jesus, wow.
And so I had to kind of like, it's kind of really weird, Denmark, because Denmark's not like England or America where you get praised for. I think it's healthy, personally. I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's healthy to praise people for stuff. So I kind of had to work out for myself. I had to kind of figure out that, okay, well, that must mean that I'm probably smart. And then I kind of started, I guess, because you got to think, like, if you don't have a father then a father figure from the age of 6, you've got to build yourself up somehow.
And
a little bit, it's not easy.
Very difficult, because you need validation, don't you? And often you'd get that from your parents, especially a father figure. If you're a male, is going to be powerful. Well, so if you don't have that, right? Where do you get your validation from? You know,
exactly. Well,
especially if you're in a culture that doesn't believe in praise, you're stuck in a quite a difficult situation. So how did you start to build that self-belief and confidence in yourself?
Consciously. I think that's the difference, right? Is like, for most kids, it's something that is kind of provided by the environment, it's provided by adults and stuff like that. And I mean, Denmark's, it's a lovely country, and I think I felt safe, and I felt, I didn't feel unloved or anything, but there wasn't any kind of like, there wasn't anybody to
role models.
So I had to just think it through and kind of work out for myself, and decide who I am, and then decide who I want to be. Then later, my granddad and my step grandfather, he was a massive influence on me, because then I moved in with him when I was 16, just after boarding school. And he was like an ex-coal miner, and he'd been in the Navy for like 15 years. And he was English, so he was my mother's stepfather. And we got on really, really well. And he was an amateur physicist, so all he ever talked about and all he ever did was just physics, right? He was very, very smart. I mean, he's pretty much a genius. I mean, he was like, what do you call him, multidextrous, when you can draw and write equally well with both hands.
Wow.
And he had no training, but he could draw exactly what he saw. So he would have picture perfect drawing abilities, like somebody with Asperger's, I guess. So a program where somebody could do that. But he wasn't, he was just kind of like a very old-fashioned guy, but a good masculine influence, I guess, at that point. And just kind of like, I guess, taught me to be a little bit more grounded and stuff like that.
That wisdom, especially from the older generation, is like so impactful, isn't it? I love hanging around with the older generation for that. Sorry.
Yeah, he grew up in the Second World War, so he kind of saw the world very different. I kind of miss that generation. They must have gone now.
Big time, man. Just their morals, their outlook, their values, like they're much more patient as well, right? They're not impacted by these things as we are, and our attention's all over the place,
Yeah, and
they're very grounded and more patient, and just more appreciative, I think, of what we take for granted, because they literally had to go and fight for it, Yeah. So I mean, that's fantastic. So that range of experience, right? Normally we start with a question, which is, what does success mean to you? Because everyone's got their own different variety, their own different variation of it, and it gives me a few anchors to go into after that. So I'm very curious. I asked this to another guest recently, and they were saying, well, it's funny enough, I was born in East Germany, which was obviously communist at the time. But then by the time he was like of age, going to university, he managed to get a scholarship to America at the height of like capitalism. So his worldview and his experience and what success meant was just like complete hybrid of both. And I guess from your point of view, you've kind of had a lot of these different ideologies, different philosophies, different thinking about how people work well together, what is right, what is wrong, and how you use your own personal agency in the world. So I'm fascinated by this one for you. What does success mean to you? How would you define it?
I think it's changed in some ways. I mean, success to me is kind of pretty simple now. Success to me is being healthy, and having a healthy mind as well, like being physically healthy, being mentally healthy. And I think friendships and family are very important to me. You know, and then I guess that's kind of it, really.
That's all you need, man. That is a beautiful recipe, right? Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy relationships. That's it. That is it. You're right. It is simple.
Yeah, I think I just like I enjoy very simple stuff. Like I don't travel much because I mean I travel if I need to or if there's something to do, but I don't like. For me, going for a walk through a random street in London, it doesn't really make any difference where I am in the world. I kind of find life pretty interesting wherever I am. So it's not like I don't need to go places to find my happiness. I'm pretty happy just with simple stuff, really. I think ambition, like in terms of what I would best is,
because you must have massive ambition there. I mean, you've got 6 different businesses. You've got the the idea for the green economy. You've got the DeFi business that you're looking for venture capital for too.
It's a weird,
there's big ambition there, definitely, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also it's kind of both at the same time. It's kind of a weird one because I don't care particularly about the end result. I care about the journey more than anything. I do care about the end result because obviously I don't get into anything without wanting to become the biggest and the best, right? You kind of got to be in it to win it, kind of thing. But I think I don't feel bad if things go wrong. So like in the crypto, in the crypto boom in 2016, we put some money in and then it just went insane, right? So we ended up with like a lot of money, like and I'd gone from like poor or kind of like just normal to like rich in 9 months. It was insane. Jesus. And all of a sudden I could just do whatever I wanted, and it turned out I didn't want much. I was just kind of like I was kind of a bit baffled by myself. I was kind of expecting like now you can do lots of stuff, but actually all I wanted to do was work on projects and kind of keep developing stuff. And it turns out that is my passion. I just kind of love working on stuff and building it. And I feel that because of maybe my unique perspective on things, I can bring in new systems and new methods for approaching all sorts of different things in society, right? So
the way you look at a problem, just in a pure problem solving sense, will be completely different to everyone else who's gone through more standardized, generic kind of conditioning of life, and especially a more consistent, more generic education system that teaches you how to think and how to approach things. Because you've had to build your own neural pathways using all of your own experience, you will have a very different way of navigating problems. So very powerful person to have in a team.
Associative thinking, isn't it? Like you kind of you adapt to your environment. I'm reading a lot about the brain at the moment, and this there is really like it's interesting because it's all about sensing your environment, right? And that's not necessarily that the senses kind of developed in a sense before the thinking did, and in many ways we think in a sensing way, right? So if you have like a topic, that your brain is trying to sense the topic, right? It's trying to understand kind of how it all fits together, right? And of course, like we all have a different approach, but I don't think it's necessarily all to do with like upbringing either. I think sometimes it's just choice, right? You can just decide to say, okay, well, how could I look at this from a few different angles, and then get used, right? And a lot of it is just habit, and you can get into the habit of just always questioning things and never taking anything for granted, right? I guess for me, there was a good reason to always question things and never take things for granted because of my upbringing, because I was just like so chaotic and I was isolated, right? So I didn't grow up in a community. I grew up with my mother, who was mentally ill, and my 2 sisters in a kind of a unit very much. So you kind of have to question everything because there's nobody to really tell you what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, you got to make sense of it for yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. I feel this is like a psychotherapy.
No, No, but it's fascinating to
really
understand, and it's
normally.
definitely part of the story and the journey, right? It's something that we definitely need to unpack and
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
But it's fascinating. Then you've ended up, so the bulk of it sounds to me then that you invested early in crypto. 2016 happened. You had a big boom. You've become a rich man overnight, and you then started to start some of your own projects. And is that how you've ended up in this DeFi space now?
That's right. So basically, well, I had a robotics company with Dr. Mirko at Imperial just prior to that, and I had an invention for like a drone that cleans high-rise windows, and we did a prototype.
Wow.
And that's all good, and we should still do something with it. But yes, I kind of got into crypto, and then I made a lot of money, and then I split up with my ex-girlfriend, and I pretty much lost it all. And
oh no way! Why was that? Was it through marriage, or how did you manage to lose it all?
Oh God, best not.
Best not to go into that one, yeah. Okay, no worries. Swiftly moving on.
Yeah, honestly.
Better question: how did you gain it all back, or where are you at in that? Did you end up finding a way to make your money back? Is it something that you've learned from and you've been able to move forward on?
I mean, I'm comfortable, but I mean, I didn't, I haven't made it back to where I was. But I don't feel that's
don't need to, do you? Really? No, it's not. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'll get there again. But it doesn't. I think when you've done it once, it's kind of like it's not that. It just doesn't feel like a big deal. It feels like something you just do again. If it's money that I'm interested in, I can definitely do that within a year. I could easily get there again. I don't feel there's just nothing stopping me. But I just don't. It's very difficult for me to do something just because of money. So it just doesn't motivate me.
It's not a deep enough motivator, which is why you think so big for all of your ideas, right? Because you need that momentum, you need that energy, you need the emotions for it. So if you blow it up into something that could genuinely change the world, all of a sudden you want to press the buttons, you want to do the phone calls, you want to do the thinking.
Once, right? I mean, and it's like I can't see any reason to be here, and then just create something mediocre just so you can make some money. And then, and then at the end of your life, you'll be like, well, at least I did something mediocre and made a bit of money. I mean, I just, honestly, I cannot see how you could be motivated by that. It's just beyond me to even understand. For me, the only thing that could possibly motivate is having a true impact on the world and changing things for the better. So that at the end of your life, you can say, okay, well, maybe not everything was perfect, but at least I achieved these things. And they did have an impact, and they did change people's lives for the better. But even changing people's lives for the better is not always as straightforward. Nothing's straightforward.
Oh, mate, it's so difficult. Even if you wanted, let's say, like, for example, I've got a youth coaching program, right? And I started it off just as my own idea. I did my own pilot for it, did it all myself. It was like a passion project. Then it got to the point where I'm thinking, right, this works. Got great feedback, got a team of people with the perfect life experience and professional experience to be able to move it forward. And it's like, right, so what's the minimum cost? Let's see how many institutions we can get it into, and let's try and get the scale. And you realize, like, it's way more complicated than just, hey, I've got a great idea. You need to be well networked with these people. You need to understand what their agenda is. You've got to understand if it fits into their strategy. You've got to frame it right for them. It's very, very complicated. And sometimes the price point doesn't have to be low. in kind of, the opposite is true sometimes. They have to see a better price tag to see that it's of value and that it can actually. So it's very, very strange world. There was some good learnings for me about 2-3 years ago now.
Yeah. Never underprice yourself or underestimate yourself.
Yeah.
That's just a mistake, because people that meet you for the first time, or they don't know what else, they don't know anything about you. They are forced to make assessments based on what you're giving them, right? And what you're showing them, and how you're expressing yourself, and where your confidence levels are, and all that kind of stuff. And they will, people will make emotional judgments on stuff, and then they'll retrospectively apply logic to it, right? So they'll be like, oh, I invested in this thing because, I looked at this and I looked at that. And really, it was just an emotional choice, right? And to be honest, like, most people in most things in their life make emotional decisions all the time. That includes investors, includes entrepreneurs. I guess entrepreneurs get feedback. They've created like a feedback system to a degree. So, they can't get away with just making emotional choices because they're constantly getting this feedback system. And whenever you know, you kind of go down a wrong trajectory, you immediately know, right? And you've got to kind of like, you just got to constantly make adjustments. But generally speaking, people think emotionally, and then they apply logic in retrospect. And because there's a need to feel that you're a sensible, reasonable person, right? And most people are not. You know, it's really, really like the opposite. Most people are completely irrational. It's kind of it's fascinating, you know. Like if you look at what's his name? See, I forgot his book here. Nassim Taleb, who's done the Black Swan.
All right.
The Black Swan concept.
He's famous musical, isn't it? The Black Swan.
Mathematician and philosopher. Yeah. So his thing is all about anti-fragility and stuff, but it's also about people and how illogical people truly are, you know, in compared to what they think they are, and how bad we are at predicting the future, right? And a good test to see how bad you are at predicting the future is to try and make a prediction 1 minute into the future.
There's also a bit of neuroscience that says your choices get worse the closer you think into the future. Your choices get better the further you think in advance, you know? So maybe we'd be better at guessing the future if we thought further ahead. And then maybe it might happen.
If that were true, then, you know, experts in predicting the future would tend to get things right more than chance. And they really don't. Quite often it's worse than chance, right? So like, you know, people predicting elections, people predicting, you know, economic trends and all that kind of stuff. The experts themselves, who, you know, are experts because they tend to have more knowledge on these, you know, global trends or whatever than most people, you know, tend to get it wrong, or they tend to be like around chance, right? So I don't think we're good. Even if experts are not good, then most of us are probably not good. I mean, what's going to happen,
especially at those kind of third party circumstances where we're looking at how multiple actors within a system combine to create, you know, an end outcome. Like if you look at a particular economy or you look at a particular industry, it might be hard to guess because there's so many variables. But I think if you think for yourself and your own future, because it's so much within your own control, I think if you think further into the future, you might be able to actually get yourself into.
Right, it depends, because it's like, yeah, sure, you can do that so long as you maintain control, and so long as you stay within a trajectory that that is very limited, right? But if you're very ambitious and you want to do big things, you can't do that. It's like, that's unrealistic, you know. You've got to get used to dealing with the unexpected
and not being in control, which I guess your personal experience puts you in the perfect kind of driving seat of, because as you said, it was so chaotic. All you could do is sense, adapt and respond, you know, to your environment. Kind of like, so it makes you really good in the modern day business world that changes so frequently, right? It's chaos out there. And so it's kind of second nature for you, that.
Very much so, yeah. So as the world spins out of control, I'm pretty comfortable. Because it is spinning out of control. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the world right now, and we're on the brink of, you know, societal collapse potentially within the next 5 to 10 years. You know, it's kind of sad to see, but you know, our politicians and leaders are certainly not leading by good example. You know,
can't be trusted anymore. Clearly, you know, quite clearly can't be trusted anymore. And like, whereas maybe 10 years ago it was seen as maybe a conspiracy theory that perhaps the big companies, the politicians and the media companies are all working together. Now it's clear as day. Clear as anything. You only need to look at the Joe Rogan thing and Spotify at the moment, where they're, you know, the White House are applying pressure. That is obscene, just because they want to control messaging and communication. Like, that is absolutely crazy. And we're at a point now where it's unavoidable to look at how corrupt it is, you know, across the world at various different levels. I mean, the big banks in England, when they failed 2007, 2008, very well known this is, the company that bailed out the banks, that the UK government went, right, here's all the money, you go and do the transaction. That was, so the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the guy who, you know, controls the finances, it was at his brother's best man's wedding. At his brother's wedding, the best man, it was his company, you know? So that's plain as day. It's plain as day. You're definitely getting a kickback on that somewhere down the line, right?
Yeah.
No one could ever prove it. Worse things have happened. Theresa May, who was Prime Minister for a bit, just before that, she was also the like kind of head of security in the country. So she would make decisions about what happens in the prison service, what happens in the police service, like where do the contracts go? Do we need contracts? Is it public service? Is it outsourced? And she gave loads of contracts for the prison services and also the police to G4S. Her husband is a majority shareholder in G4S. How ridiculous is that? And it happened. It was on the newspapers. It was in the Independent. It was there, and nothing could be done about it. Really, it's there plain as day now.
I know it's nuts. I think it's because people like, if you fought for your rights, then I think you're more protective of them, right? But we have a whole generation. We have a whole generation, and unfortunately, I think it includes the boomers as well, that haven't really fought for their rights.
No, we haven't. Never, no.
Previous generation, like my granddad had, and his parents had. It was kind of like that was like, you really had skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a strong sense of like, you have these kind of rights, not because you just have them, but because you
make them happen. It's like the suffragettes, ladies getting the vote. It's also, there was a lot of riots in the 80s in England as well, with kind of the way that people from different nationalities that moved to England were being treated by, like, systemically by the government. And we haven't really gone into these battles too much. I mean, there was some student riots, but for me, it's just crazy that in England, which must be seen as like the place where law and order exists, right? They've got the legal system, they've got democracy. That's got to be the place that we, as a country, we at least perpetrate that, everything's perfect here. And yet, even in that place, we can see corruption at so many levels. So what's happening in the rest of the world then?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
It's
scary when you think about it, right? It is.
But I also think we don't have we don't have democracy. I mean, because
one vote every 4 or 5 years cannot be democracy in action, can it?
We're not being treated as, politicians are not treating us like, they work for us. They're treating us as their subjects, and that seems to be kind of like a global phenomenon now, where it's almost accepted that the way they talk, the way they act, the way they behave is as if they, as if we're their subjects. I mean, they are meant to work for us. They're meant to do what we put them there to do. But even that, I think just the system itself is kind of inefficient.
It's completely flawed, yeah.
And it's unrealistic to expect one person to make decisions on behalf of millions of people, because however clever or well-meaning that person is, and I don't think most politicians are clever or well-meaning, but even if they were, it's just unrealistic for them to make good decisions, because they wouldn't even be able to compute the amount of information that they'd need to really make those decisions, and they have to rely on everybody giving them advice, and even those giving them advice can't possibly compute all that information either. It's just unrealistic, right?
No, you need to devolve the information decision making right down to the smallest level that makes sense, in my opinion. It's kind of like the system. I live in Spain, and it's sort of like the system they've got here, all down to the autonomous region. And even within an autonomous region, you've got autonomous kind of towns and cities. So everything happens at a very localized level here.
That's the best way. Yeah. I mean, I have a model called DDD, which is decentralized direct democracy. And I want to test that out in like the metaverse. So we have a metaverse company called Omni Matrix, where we're going to test out the direct democracy model, because I think ultimately we are at a time now where we can Wikipedia society, right? Where everybody can have a say in kind of like making it run effectively.
We should be able to. The main concern there is security, isn't it? Making sure you don't get hacked and making sure that there's no kind of you can still get people gaming the system, even though it's going to be done online. Well, yeah,
that's it, right? So you see it as a product. You see, instead of an ideology, because like the whole world is divided into ideologies now, which is just like a religious mindset. It's like, are you left, right? And it's just like, who cares? It's like, we have
what's the problem we're trying to solve? What's the common outcomes that we all need to achieve by? Does the system create those outcomes? That's really what it should be about, right?
We have common problems that that we could put our minds together to try and solve. But we can't do that if we start thinking in terms of ideology. So the way I look at democracy for the DDD model is I see it as a product. As an entrepreneur, I'd say, okay, well, if we wanted to create this product for the public, we need to test and we need to create the best possible product, and 100%. It needs to be better than the other products on the market, meaning the other kind of government systems, right? And once you've proven and you're confident that your prototype is better than what's out there, then it's a matter of putting it out there, marketing it, and see if you can get people to adopt it, right?
And then it's time to hide from the CIA. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. So listen, mate, we mentioned
monopolies on governance.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Monopoly. I see the world a bit like Monopoly at the moment, and when you get to a late stage of a game of Monopoly, what happens? A few people have got all the pieces. Some people have ruled out the game altogether, or they're just getting rinsed and they're going to be out the game very soon. And then these real big boys start to compete and try and battle each other too. And we can see that with like the space race and all various different aspects of the world. But curious, changing the world, thinking big. We mentioned DeFi and NFT at the start of the conversation. How does DeFi and NFT change the world in your opinion?
Well, so what we've got with Omni DeFi is we're tokenizing real estate and art and like real world assets. So I'll talk a little bit about that so I can put it into context.
Please do.
Yes, we've been working on that for a couple of years. We have a team of like 20, 30 people.
Wow.
And basically, we have over $500 million worth of real estate and art committed to the project as well, to onboard as soon as the platform is ready. And then we have more, interested parties that haven't signed anything, but have shown interest, even governments, because they can potentially fund infrastructure projects and not have to borrow money off neighboring governments, basically. So we're kind of releasing the first token for that, the exchange and utility token, within the next couple of weeks or so.
Wow! So what, before the end of March, definitely, yeah? Yeah. Amazing, mate. I'd love to see that. If you can send me a link or something, because actually a different guest had a similar idea, actually, tokenizing real assets in the real world. And I'm just very curious to see the actual platform. His platform also was not yet ready. And I'm just curious. I just want to see something actually work.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Ours is going to be an app, and you can kind of swipe through it like Tinder, right? So you'd be like, yes, no, buy $10 of this house, buy $100 of this piece of art, or whatever. And we're going to link it up with a metaverse as well, so you can have like a metaverse house, and you can kind of like put your stuff in there, and you'll have an
But the art you've bought in it. Cool, nice, good idea.
Just for fun, and just so you got an online gallery, I guess, or a virtual reality gallery. But
it's got to make it tangible. Otherwise, you've just got internet things, and you can't see them anywhere necessarily. So you need a place to go and see it.
Just because that's kind of where things are headed, and also I see what we can do in like all sorts of like derivative services and products in that space.
So for people that are listening and they're thinking, what is DeFi and what is an NFT? I mean, I've got some good understanding of that, but maybe you can unpack it for us.
Yeah, I guess like DeFi very much is about using smart contracts to kind of have a more expedient system of trade in many ways. Like for us, we'd be onboarding like real estate and art and real world assets over a certain value, like say over 10K. And then basically securitizing it, putting into an NFT, securitizing that NFT that then owns the asset, and then fractionalizing it, and then the main owner can sell up to 49% in OATs, which are Omni asset tokens, and to the public. And the reason why it kind of
I have a smart contract that's based on a real world asset. That real world asset then becomes a digital asset through the help of creating it into an NFT. And then the contract keeps it all locked in place, and the security around it makes sure no one can hack it and nick it off me. And then from there, you then create the ability for people to own very small percentages of that product, right? Or whatever it might be, of that asset.
They're kind of like mostly going to be security tokens, but we're also going to experiment with synthetic tokens. And because we want everybody to have access to this, and not only certified investors.
Oh, mate, it's a game changer for allowing people to access wealth generation in the world, right? If I can take my £10 or my £100, and then I can invest in a small asset that might increase over time, or at least hold the value.
Holds the value is the most important thing, right? Especially in a world where the dollar looks like it's going towards hyperinflation.
That's exactly what I was most other
currencies, right? And at the same time, the stock market is kind of like
all over the place. Yeah,
it's going to crash at some point. I mean, it's it's too far removed from the real world situation. And then what we're predicting is people then flood into crypto, Bitcoin. That's why, this year Bitcoin is probably going to do pretty well, right? Because as things start to crash in the real world, then people kind of flood into Bitcoin, and that's fine. But what's going to happen at some point is the volatility is really going to start to get a lot of people, and also 99% of projects are basically empty shells that are pretending to be something, right? They're not providing any true value. They're just kind of like interesting projects at best. So they're going to disappear at some point. But also what you're going to have, in my prediction, is within 5 years we're going to have an inflation bomb, because what we're going to have is, and I don't know how quick it could happen.
It's already starting to happen, isn't it? Definitely,
Well, no,
I mean, you can even.
So that's the inflation, which could turn into runaway inflation, right? But as it does so, money will be going into crypto. But my prediction is that there's going to be a realization at some point that not only do we have more money, do we need more money to buy stuff with because of the inflation, but also there's going to be a realization that once crypto is being used just as much as fiat is, then there's going to be the realization that there are two systems trying to deal with the same goods and services, right? And that's the inflation bomb that I'm predicting, because by that point, both are going to go down to being worth next to nothing. Not only fiat, but crypto as well, because it has infinite inflation potential with crypto, right? Because you can create as many new crypto tokens as you want, and and there'll be a point at which it's like, what is worth anything, right? You're not going to know what is worth anything. I think Bitcoin will probably survive because it's anti-censor, censor resistant, and I think that is like super important, and it's secure as well. So Bitcoin will probably do fine, but pretty much everything else is going to collapse. And so that's what we are preparing ourselves for, because traditionally speaking, real estate and collectibles and art tend to hold their value. They certainly never go down to zero, right? So except in China, maybe. But it's kind of like there is a lot of there's potentially a crash coming so bad that the world has never seen anything like it. I mean, it'll make the 1930s crash look like.
Well, the problem we've got really is that the world has never been so interconnected as it ever has been throughout history. So that crash is going to be a global impact, and the whole system is going to be on its knees. So the good news is that there should be some sort of counter systems that emerge as a result of that, right? Different ways of organizing, different ways of making decisions.
Long term, I think will be good, but it's just like it's people that have nothing that will suffer, right? Because first of all, they can't necessarily afford to get onto onto Bitcoin or whatever. It's going to be horrendous. I mean,
so that is where that is where the new ways of organizing people as societies will start to emerge.
I think
first.
So, yeah. And that's what I'm focused on. So all I can do is to try and create systems that can help with what's coming, right?
Yeah.
And the Omni DeFi is one of those systems, because like releasing wealth in real estate, like there's $280.6 trillion worth in there. Trillion. I mean, that's
a silly number. That's a silly
more
number.
than
That's crazy.
Twice global bond market, right? I think it's as big as global debt. It's insanely big. And all that money is locked up, right? And it has a velocity of like decades, right? So it takes forever to go from one owner to the next. Whereas here, you at least with 49% of it, you're speeding it up like crazy, right? And then if you add a stable coin on top of that, which we will do, then you have you have a new type of economy that's based on real value, real world assets. have proven themselves to really have and maintain value, right? And then you can tie that into the crypto world, but it's also tied into the real world, and it's strong. You know, it's not gonna it's not gonna break apart like the other two systems mostly probably will. Right.
I just got a very good insight into your mind there, I think. And it's almost like the projection in your mind that you see is way out in the future. So you're actually living in a land that isn't quite here right now.
Yeah,
you know?
That's very true. Like our vision is called Mundos Novus 2050. So our kind of like goals and visions or about 30 years into the future.
Wow. Insane.
Yeah, so everything
and you're ready to back everything that you're doing now for that period of time. You've got that level of commitment in everything that you do.
I know I can. Because,
do you know what, that is that's a very good secret to share with people. You know, something that I've realized too as well. It's all well and good in a rapid startup phase, trying to like test and learn as quickly as possible and get feedback and shape an idea rough as you can. But eventually you do need to commit to one of your points earlier, to the best quality that you can create. And also, once you've done enough learning, you need to get down to the quality. But also, things take time. Industries change, markets change, the adoption curve of people joining new industries, whether it's crypto, NFT or CBD, right? It's all going to take its own time. So you have to be committed for a number of years. And sometimes the results are not immediate. You know, you have to be committed enough to go through
the bigger the ambition, the bigger the time frame, right? It's just completely unrealistic to, you know, have big ambitions and then put them within a very short time frame. It's just unrealistic, right?
So how did you've got me going on a million different directions in my mind now, right? But how did you start to build a team around you that allowed you to do so much at once and to get so much great momentum? You know, because you know yourself quite well, you know your strengths quite well. So how did you start to build that team around you?
Well, I guess some of it kind of happened just by chatting to people. So I was talking to a really cool guy, Erwan, who's French, who was a coder, and we kind of like had some friends and we kind of got started on it. But then I was also simultaneously talking to an American a lawyer and educator, and she's a mathematician, Janie Dam, who joined very early, because what we started first was Create Links, which is a collaborative, and then born from that came Omnia, and then born from Omnia from Validitum, and then we have Ubiviz and Ilicium as well, which are kind of part of a trio with Omnia, Ubiviz and Ilicium representing three parts of true world value that we're going to go through pretty much a similar process with as we've done with Omnia. But yeah, so I was specifically looking for people that had qualities that I lack, because I guess as you get older, so I'm 42 now, and I've done lots of things, you know, I've done lots of different projects and stuff like that. I realized that it's best for me to avoid people that are similar to me, because ideas, I don't need any more ideas. I mean, I've got plenty of ideas, and I come up with ideas and solutions and innovations pretty easily. There's just I just don't need any more ideas. And I've also kind of like I've planned this for like 20 years. I've kind of like I put a lot of thought into why we're doing what we're doing now and what comes next and what comes after that and what comes after that, right? So so I just needed people that had more, I guess, more of a traditional understanding of business and the world, to me, to kind of like balance me out. So like, for example, Jan.
Yeah, to keep some of your ideas relevant and make sure they land well, right? Because you think so differently and your ideas are so far out. You need the balance, and you need someone to make sure it's going to stick now as well, don't you?
Exactly. I mean, just the like, I guess I think in terms of like association and pictures, and I kind of see things. It's almost like an artist, like where you do a sketch, right? And you understand what you're creating, but if you're trying to explain it to other people, you'd be like, yeah, this is the hoof, this is the tail, this is, you know, and it's like a horse, and people understand that you're doing a horse, but they can only see one little bit at a time, whereas you can see the whole thing. And so
you can see it running through the fields, and
but every step that you take forward, you're just adding more layers to it. It's not like you don't know what, you know. things are pretty clear from the beginning, right? Because you know what you're doing, you know what you're creating. It's just that it takes a while for everybody else to see that, because there's several years that still need to be there before people can kind of see the big picture. But what I lack is linear thinking, right? Like step by step by step. I mean, I do in terms of planning, but I don't in terms of kind of like my own work method. I'm pretty chaotic, right? So I'm like here, there, everywhere, and it's kind of, I am kind of organized as well, but organized in a different way. So like, for example, I organize all my folders on Coggle, which is a mind map thing. And so because that way I can find folders straight away, right? So I can be like, okay, well, this is regulatory stuff within this branch, within that. And so usually, and you color them differently and all that kind of stuff. So if I need to find a folder, I'm actually very organized in terms of like, oh, well, there it is. You know, I can find it straight away visually. But if you give me something linear, like a whole list of like, I can't remember the names of the folders. It's like,
yeah,
I'm going to take forever to try and find that, right? So I just operate differently in that sense. And like Jan is a banker, and he's got a banking background, and he's very kind of like conservative and stable, and he's kind of very thorough and takes things step by step. And Janie as well, you know. And then Vera on our team there, she's also leading Validitum, which is a reg tech company. You know, she's got a background working with the British Passport Office and, you know, regulatory stuff, GDPR, all that kind of stuff. And so we go through things in a kind of very methodical step-by-step process, right? And
brilliant.
Even though that sounds boring to people, that to me is really exciting, because it's the opposite of, it's the opposite of what I've grown up with. So for me, like these things I really soak in, and I really enjoy learning to just be more kind of step by step and process
slowly learn what's the experiment, what we're hoping to gain. It's like you might have the big phases planned out as like the perfect way of building it out, but actually how's that landing and responding with the people that are just at that first step right now? Because you've got to bring the world with you. And is it all timing's quite key as well, isn't it? When you live so far out in the future, it's like is it relevant now? Like and what part of it is and how I mean, I have like my own kind of method. So for me, timing is essential, because if you're too early on a trend, then you know, you're basically wasting all your efforts, because you're not going to hit it at the right time. So you've got to. I compare it to surfing, and it's funny actually. Another guest said that before. They said you've got to time your surf. Business is a wave. You've got to time your surf. You've got to push off just at the right time.
That's exactly it, right? So like I think I wrote something on this in LinkedIn recently, where, you know, VCs and investors will quite often chase what's already passed, and they're the worst surfers ever, right? So it's like the wave has already passed, and they're kind of swimming after it, right? So it's like they're trying to invest into Google and Facebook and kind of like things have already succeeded and that out, right? I mean, outcompeted at some point, or like they're not. You know, as a surfer, you should be looking behind you, right? You should be seeing the trends that are coming, the waves that are coming, and then you need to kind of like gather
start
speed.
Your paddle. Start your paddle. Get ready to jump on your board, and then time it just right. Exactly. Mate, what an incredible experience, man. I'd love to chat with you like more. We'll come up to just bang on the hour there. We normally try and wrap things up around that time. We haven't been able to unpack specifically any of your particular lessons yet, but I know from this story people are going to take away so much. Definitely about thinking differently.
Give you like a quick one on like how I operate in terms of like so I have like a couple of things I see as really important and like essential to make things work. One is flow, and the other is momentum, and then there is emergence, convergence, which is similar to timing, rhythm. I think that's kind of it. If you can get all those things going, then things will always work out. It
sounds like a martial arts routine, right? Flow, momentum. How do you apply that to business for yourself?
So, for example, with flow, I mean, so what you'll always have. You'll have people that come in because they're excited. You have people that really want to kind of be part of something, and they're kind of putting energy in and stuff like that. But then you'll have people that are scared of losing control. And in an organization, what you quite often have, and sometimes they are a little bit older, they will try and put restrictions on that flow because they're scared of what might happen, or they don't feel or whatever, right? and it's essential to not do that, right? It's also it's important to allow the creative process to actually just express itself, because if you don't do that at the beginning, you're not going to be able to do it later. It's at the beginning of any project that you want to basically be free flowing, let the ideas go, and not feel that you have to have a fully structured way of achieving them. You've just got to basically let it flow, right? And then you apply structure afterwards. But that's to do with and so that helps momentum, right? So that helps you build up momentum. Mm-hmm. And as momentum builds, you need less and less effort to achieve the same things, right? Because you're getting more and more momentum going. And so that's why
you're building that muscle now, aren't you? Right? Yeah. So you've got more to go off. Your brain and your body, your team, everyone's interconnected. We've all been here, done it before now. So that it's easier to keep flowing in that direction.
Exactly. And if you break momentum, it's very difficult to get back again, right? So you've got to just kind of keep it going. But it also means you can't wear yourself out and put too much effort in at the beginning. You've got to kind of you've got to slowly build it up. That's what you do with momentum. Slowly build up until the point where things are running really quickly. But what I see a lot of people do is they put a lot of effort in, they wear themselves out, and they kind of start to get a bit of momentum, but then their energy's gone, right? Because they've spent too much energy. You've got to actually build that up slowly, and then once you're going 1,000 miles an hour, right? And it's no more effort than it was at the beginning.
It's building your own energetic momentum alongside the team and the business, isn't it? Because you, as the person who's putting all that into action, or being a team member and is part of the problem solving, if the business or the idea carries more momentum than you're ready for, you too need to create your own energy reserve to be able to work at that rate and pace. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
Yeah, it's in some ways you've got to be. I think if you're doing things right, you should always err on the side of caution rather than rush, because you're gonna get there, right?
Yeah.
If you're not doing things right, then that's where you've got to focus, right? But if things are structured well and you're doing things right and you're building up momentum, it's actually a bad idea to rush, because you're going to succeed. Okay? It's almost inevitable. If you've got a good product and a market fit and all that kind of stuff, and you're doing everything right, you will succeed. It's almost like it's impossible to fail, so long as you're kind of following that trajectory. But if you rush, one of the biggest reasons for why companies will collapse, and I've had that happen to me, is things growing too quick. Right? But what happens when things grow too quick before you're ready is you don't have the right infrastructure in place for exponential growth.
Yeah, you have cash flow at a basic level, right?
Yeah. But also just structurally, for example, what do you do when you just having 10 new dollars a day being applied?
Processes.
Where do you put it? Who do you put in charge of it? And the other problem is that you've got to have a team that is super strong, right, and really understand each other, and they've kind of grown together, and that takes a little while. You can't expect that to happen overnight. You've got to kind of grow together, trust each other, and then you have to create your culture, your internal culture, and you can't do that overnight either. So, but if you succeed in having a strong core team and a strong culture, then as people come in, they will fit in with that culture instead of you having to train them to do stuff. They will kind of try and find out what they need to do to be part of this culture, right?
Hired the wrong person. If you need to train someone in what they need to do, for me, you've hired the wrong person, right? I mean, modern businesses, they need proactive people that are ready to learn. They need to have the right mindset that will allow them to do that.
If you've got the right culture, it's very difficult for the wrong person to even be there, because they won't feel like they belong, right? Yeah. And everybody else will feel exactly the same. So that's why the culture thing is so important to kind of build up properly, because it will take care of itself, and then the other thing that I really focus a lot on is emergence, especially at the beginning. And emergence for me is allowing problems to arise without fix them straight away, but just allow them to rise up, so you can properly understand what they are and then deal with them. Because another thing that I see a lot of people do is they have any little problem and they're quick in to fix it, and they don't allow the whole thing to emerge so that they can really understand why the problem is there in the first place.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's about tampering with the system, isn't it? If you act too early, they call it tampering. It's like you're changing things too early without seeing the real systemic nature of that problem. So you should wait a bit until you really understand how
right?
it's interconnected, and then you can really attack it. Another point of emergence as well that I'm familiar with is, as well as, you know, let the problems emerge, once you do find a solution, you have to wait and see what happens with that, right? What's the impact? How does that solution change the way that the problem we're trying to solve? How does that, and the way that interacts with all of the other kind of parts of that problem? What's the impact? You don't know when you're in ideation phase, when you first come up with a solution. You think you know, but you don't have a clue. So it's the other side of emergence, isn't it? Waiting to see, does this idea actually work? What's the impact, you know?
But also then it comes to the other one, which is convergence, right? So convergence for me is related to timing, but so is rhythm. But convergence with understanding the trends, right? And understanding how things are developing in the world and in your chosen industry. And as they're converging on a certain point, you want to time yourself so you fit right in there when you need to, and you're all prepared for everything. And that is not always the reason why I prefer convergence more than timing is because it's not a linear thing. It's like you're seeing a lot of different things being developed in a lot of different industries. You're seeing a lot of political movements, global movements, and all that kind of stuff. And you can see that things are converging on a certain point. But the only way of kind of like timing it is kind of, you know, seeing where it all meets up, and then you want to make sure that you are at that point, right? That's a lot to do with understanding all the problems in the world and understanding game theory, like what's truly going on versus what people think are going on, or what people say is going on. You know, you've got to see where people's motives, what's truly driving people, and that gives you a better way of kind of understanding where things are probably headed, and then you can act towards that. But if you don't understand convergence and you don't see that things are converging and anything, and you just think stuff is happening, and you're not seeing the patterns, I guess it's very difficult to kind of position
navigate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how can you navigate that if you don't understand the complexity and how it's all interlinked, right? I'm with you 100%. So is that how rhythm fits in then in your mind too? So it's like, as you can see all the different parts and how they come together, it's just about learning how they fit and what kind of pace they create.
Rhythm is to do with cyclical time. I mean, I have kind of like, so although I need people that are more linear thinking than me, I also I've created I don't know if the word probably already exists, but I use the word linealism as kind of almost like a religious mindset that most people have, and they actually believe that things operate in linear fashions, and they really don't. There's nothing in nature pretty much at all that works in straight lines.
No, it's all a complex adaptive system, isn't it? So it all works in curves, really.
Even the way we think about time. I mean, we're used to, I mean, maybe this is kind of like my hippie background, but we're used to thinking of time in kind of like a linear way. But I've just kind of come to realize that that's just a societal or cultural choice. It's not really a representative of reality. You know, reality seems to happen in cycles, and so therefore rhythm is more to do with cycles. And you can have, like, you know, a rhythm of, say, like you're having a meeting every week at the same time, and you make sure that they're at that same time, and that gives your whole team kind of a rhythm, right? And even if you're the only one turning up because others are not turning up to begin with, you're holding the rhythm. And then once you have the rhythm, it's like sailing a ship, you know, because I sailed ships in Denmark, like Viking ships, for a while. You have that rhythm, you know, and you kind of get into that rhythm, and you need it, because without the rhythm, you can't work together effectively. So, so that's
especially in a business, because you've got to have different discussions at different times, and you need to know when's the right time for you to place your thoughts on that particular area. But I know agile stuff is very keen on this, isn't it? You know, you have your plan, you have a certain discussion planning, you stand up, your reviews, your retros. Yeah, I've been doing it for 7 years across different size organizations. Literally banking, fintech, energy, pharmaceuticals. I'm lucky enough to go to Brazil one time, actually. Got flown to help a big bank in Brazil on behalf of a client. They were about to leave the client because their digital transformation was going wrong and they couldn't fix it. So it was a $2 billion account. And I had 2 days of pleasure, 3 days of business to try and turn around, literally from the most senior stakeholders down to the delivery team, get them to think differently and approach things differently just in 3 days. in Brazil where they all speak Portuguese. And I don't speak any Portuguese. My English is bad enough, you know. So it was an awesome experience, man, honestly. And it's given me so much confidence now, just like anything to do with.
I feel we should interview you next.
Let's do it. Invite me on. Yeah. Invite me onto your show. I'm all about that. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be
mate,
cool.
Listen, make sure on LinkedIn you send me the links that you want below the video. For the people that are listening, no doubt they're absolutely fascinated by so many different things that you've said. So you're going to find probably quite a few links below this video to get in touch with Raki, to learn about his different ideas too. You'll always find my links below the video. Mate, just before we go, anything you want to leave the audience with?
Anything I want to what?
Leave the audience with. Any final words of guidance or advice?
I guess I have one thing which I value above all else. In terms of like living a good life and doing business well, is courage. And I think courage is the #1 most important thing. It allows you to live well. It allows you to love well, and it allows you to deal with everything that comes your way. And it's something you can train. You know, the more you kind of face things head on, the more you build courage. And courage is the #1 thing. If you don't have courage in your life, you're just not going to have a good life. Simple as. And
especially not a good business life. But you're right, it's true for all areas of life. True, man. You live well, love well, you need courage. It's very, very, very true. Mate, thank you for opening up so much, for telling us so much about yourself. It's been a real pleasure. We're going to leave it here. Again, all the links are down below. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, good talking. Take care.